Welcome, everybody, to Come Back to Love Radio. I am Robyn Vogel, and we are on Dream Visions 7 Radio. Welcome to all the listeners out there. Welcome to those that are new to the show. I'm so happy to have you here. This is the radio show where we explore the journeys of healing, connection, and transformation in love and relationships. I'm your host, Robyn Vogel. I'm a love and intimacy coach, an internal family systems therapist, and the creator of Heal Your Heart. Join me as I share stories, tools, and insights to help you rewrite your love story, whether it's about overcoming heartbreak, unraveling old patterns, or reigniting the spark in your current relationship. Together, we'll explore how love begins within and expands outward to create meaningful, fulfilling connections with yourself and with others. You can tune in to Come Back to Love every Thursday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. Listen online, on your mobile device, in your car, while you're going for a walk, or simply ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 Radio. In each episode, I welcome incredible guests who bring their unique perspective and expertise to help us dive into topics like self-compassion, healing childhood wounds, creating the love we desire and deserve, and intimacy. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by two, not one, but two special guests, Dr. Elsbeth Meuth and Dr. Freddy Zental Weaver. The two of you have assisted thousands of couples and singles to create lasting intimacy and fulfillment in their lives and relationships. The two of you have been featured on Showtime's documentary series Sexual Healing and the Emmy award-winning NBC show Starting Over. The two of you are best-selling authors of the book Sexual Enlightenment, endorsed by world-renowned spiritual pioneer Dr. Michael Beckwith. And you are the co-founders of TantraNova Institute in Chicago and the originators of the June 1st National Intimacy Day. That is awesome. You have, it looks like, coached so many people all over the world and done such innovative and powerful work with couples, teaching about intimacy, sharing secrets about intimacy, and being change makers in this field. The two of you are beloveds, husband and wife, as well as business partners. And as I said, residing in Chicago in the US, for those that are listening outside the US. And to me, the two of you are, like I said before we got started on this show, you guys are like superstars. I'm so happy to have you here. And I'm just welcoming everybody who's listening to Come Back to Love to grab a cup of tea, relax, take a breath, and join us on this journey for the next bit of time. So, welcome to the two of you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the
Really
gracious welcome. I'm just touched.
Yeah, I'm like, who are those people? That's great. Thank you, Robyn. Great to be on your platform. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Let's start out with, since I said TantraNova Institute, which I know is what you call your business, I think it might help our listeners like to get the real juice of what it is and what you offer. It's one thing to read your bio, but it's another thing to hear your voices and hear what you're doing in the world. What gifts are you sharing?
Yeah. Wow. Well, we're founders and directors of TantraNova Institute here in Chicago. We founded this institute 25 years ago. And, it's funny because this work has really so fulfilled me in terms of my own personal transformational process and work and working with couples all over the world. Everywhere, probably, I don't know how many thousands of people, but, we're really sharing with people, not really teaching them anything new. We're really reminding them of what they've forgotten. And, we do that through working with life forces, sexual energy in a particular way, that people can remember how to live into their dreams and their possibility and let go of a lot of the stories that we live in and really get how we are our own self-fulfilling prophecy and where that energy and story and belief comes from, and not only analyzing it, but really tuning into the frequency of something and really starting to get into moving with grace, ease, and flow slowly towards this thing we want. But looking forward to unpacking more of that with you.
Yes.
A lot said, so I want to just get everybody's attention now. So,
That's perfect.
yeah.
Elsbeth, do you want to add anything to that or?
I'd love to. Um, so as Freddy said, we started TantraNova. It was like 2001. And I had, in the 90s, I was a management consultant. And so what we are doing now was so far from what I ever could envision. However, at that time, I also was in breakdown in intimate relationship. I had the pattern of attracting unavailable men. And while that was exciting, most of the time I was alone. And when these patterns repeat themselves and it becomes obvious, particularly when we see that they are in the way of what we are yearning for, which was for me to bring lasting intimacy and love into my life. I had love and intimacy in my life, but I didn't know how to make it last, you know. And that was really the moment of despair when I didn't know what to do. And that was the entry for me into studying Tantra as a discipline, not just reading a book here or there or a little practice here or there. No, really immersing myself. And in the immersion, what opened up was through the healing process was that I had held distrust towards men. And Robyn, I had no clue. I mean, if you had known me 25 years ago, 20, 27 years ago, I did not look like a distrusting bitch. I was charming, I was enrolling, inviting, I looked very available at the outside, as I learned later on, because if there's distrust, we are not truly available.
Right.
And so that got healed through the practices and the healing practices that Tantra is so powerful in Tantric practice. And then within 6 months, Freddy showed up in my life.
Ta-da!
And he was available. If I hadn't done the clearing work and had not been available, I think I would not have recognized him as a potential partner. I mean, I would have seen him as tall, handsome, I mean, all of it. But a potential partner is a whole other level.
Right.
So I'm so glad I did that clearing work. And I'm also sharing this for each of you who is listening, because sometimes when we desire something very strongly, we may be the ones who are in our own way, as it was for me, without knowing, and then taking the veil off and clearing. So for me, then to become available and meet the men who then I created TantraNova with, we got married. And ever since have been together, live and work together.
Yeah, we are actually the living work. When couples come to do their work with us, we're just telling them what we do.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not that stuff doesn't stop happening; it just doesn't stick around as long. It's like how quickly can we move and come back to kind of what's in this unified field is just love. Once we get past what we don't like about the weather or what she said or he said or whatever, and we can start to have processes and practices that we can come back to center quickly and then move towards a senior commitment or how I want to feel, choice starts to open up. And so, yeah.
So amazing. Yes. And so much to unpack there. This is already so
Yeah, I
juicy
know.
for me. It's what I like. It's my life. It's what I'm passionate about. And
Yes,
it's
yeah.
where I spend my time. So I'm going to ask the question that most of our listeners will want to know. And that is, how did you meet?
Mm. Well, I was in the software business in San Francisco, and a lot of the curriculum that we teach now, though I went through the 2-year program, certification program that Elsbeth did as well, I was first introduced to Tantra when I was 13 years old, living in Hawaii, going through my puberty, spending a lot of time in the shower. As a lot of guys are. My father, thank God, was a wonderful, enlightened person, and he was also a practicing trained psychiatrist. And he gave me a book to read on how sex meditation. So I loved it. My girlfriend loved it. But even more than that, I had a dream, a hope, desire to go on to college on athletic scholarship, but didn't believe that I could do it at the time, living in Hawaii, get the coaching and the recognition and blah, blah, blah. Well, I did go on to college on athletic scholarship. And it wasn't that I didn't do all the things that you would normally do to do that. I did it, though, without the disbelief or the suffering about it. And so after college, I kept reading books and going to workshops and applying these principles in my personal relationships. And after about 15 years in San Francisco in the software business, company changed. A company hired me, moved me to Chicago. I was online looking for Shakti, a female Tantra partner, and Elsbeth's profile showed up. And I really came here to meet her. And we met.
But
And
he didn't know that
I didn't know it at the
at the
time.
time.
Maybe my
Right.
self knew. But, and so 6 months of the day, we, what I call, transcended the romantic drama, pooled our resources, and created this work. That's 25 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it
So
was
just,
it was on the internet that we met through a Tantra website. And as Freddy said, and then I remember within a couple of emails, I hadn't even met him yet. I hadn't even seen a picture of him yet. He said to me, "Oh, by the way, I grew up in a tantric household." I said, "What?" I had never met someone whose parents practiced tantra in the 60s. So on my list was a man who was either very interested in studying or practicing tantra that I wanted to meet, or already practicing. But then when he said he grew up in a tantric household, I said, "Oh my gosh, the universe showered me with,
What did
gifts,
you ask for?
gifts beyond I could ever
wow.
dream of."
Wow. I
Yeah.
grew up in a tantric household. I am sure that's the first time I've ever heard anybody say that. And that's really amazing that your dad gave you a book at age 13 on sex meditation. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing.
One of
Wow.
those books. Yeah, this work is, again, as I mentioned earlier, remembering what we've forgotten. Because, like, how does sex, what does that have to do with being happier in areas of life that seem completely unrelated to sex?
Yeah, let's
Interesting,
go
though.
there.
Yeah, when you bring consciousness to the sexual, whether you're doing consciousness work or not, we're more open, loving, vulnerable, receptive. Chemically, we're changed, more endorphin, serotonin, oxytocin, the feel-good hormones. So we're in
Yeah.
an altered state. It's an altered state of consciousness. So when you add the meditation piece to it, the awareness of breath, the awareness of energy, and intention, like I want to create a loving relationship or work that's fulfilling or a place that's inspiring, whatever it might be, we begin in that intimate vulnerability of the sexual energetic to get to look and see energetically, emotionally, frequency, a story, a belief that is what we're doing to get what we've been getting, to then start to move with grace, ease, and flow into the belief of what I'm creating. And that then starts to flow into a listening outside of the practice or outside of the sexual liveness as a way of listening and being in your life. As, like, for instance, doing this work, if I said, well, hate my job, 30 more years of retirement, I wouldn't even say that, because what happens in the cascading effect of that thought energetically is not where I want to go. So we're starting to listen differently, and language becomes more bright, and listening and so on. So
Wow. So you really learned what I would call a sex magic practice at a very young age. And you understood and learned that the energy, the sexual energy, is our life force energy, and it can be directed and shared and pointed with intention.
yeah,
Uh,
tension, elevated emotion changes
mhm.
matter.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Wow. You must have gotten everything you wanted after age 13.
But then it's actualizing it, because it's moment by moment, as you know.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
thought I had that, next thing you know. But again, it's how quickly
Right.
can you come off of it and come back to center. That's what the opportunity and work is. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Right.
also
Sure.
open up to new vistas, because once
Yes.
I come to certain insights and openings,
Mm.
it keeps going. Otherwise, we just regress, you know. And I would love to build a little bit further on what Freddie opened up around that sexual life force energy that is creative, that is, one key dimension of coming into deeper, intimate connection with ourselves. So let's explore a little bit how intimacy, sexual, emotional, mental, or spiritual intimacy play out within the individual, and then how that plays out in couplehood or partnership. And
Wonderful.
yeah, so
Yes.
so the life energy is really the origin. Without it, none of us would be here talking or listening. And it can show up in different ways. When we often speak of sexual energy, we think of aroused energy, commonly, speaking. So for us, life force energy is sexual and creative in nature. It just shows up at different gradations, from a subtle state, like when we talk or when we listen, to when I walk at Lake Michigan in the summer and I feel the breeze on my skin. I'm not highly aroused, but my energy has risen. I'm alive. And then all the way up, right before the climactic or ejaculatory moment, when the energy is highly aroused, it's the same energy, life force energy, just showing up at different levels. So that is one key aspect in the tantric practice, as you well know, Robyn. But for everyone who is listening, connecting to myself in an intimate way, the sexual is one dimension. The heart is another dimension where love resides, emotional connection. And here's the thing, when I am angry, it's the last thing to connect with Freddie intimately. It's like, no, stay away, you know.
Hmm.
So in order to open up the intimate connection, and I'm not even talking about sexual intimacy connection right now, just being connected, which comes from the heart. It does not come from the sex. It comes from the heart. Then I want to tune with my own heart, drop into myself, like into me, I see intimacy. And that is when that is shifted within, then the channel is opened up again. So, second dimension is the heart love dimension, mental intimacy. We can feel very close to another person in discourse, having discourse together and speaking and exploring subjects, and it can be arousing to some extent. And then spiritual intimacy or cosmic intimacy, that then is the connection to the universe and, you know, the higher consciousness.
Mm.
And the exploration of these different dimensions within, because everything that I would like to show up in my beloved relationship, I want to create, cultivate further in the relationship with myself. So I'm just going
Yeah.
to pause here because I know you probably have to say something.
Well, first of all, that was a beautiful description of all the different ways that we are intimate in life. And it is
Mm.
true, I'm sure it's your experience too, that most people, when they hear the word intimacy, they're only thinking of sex. And so there's a wonderful, just educational piece there for all of us and for everyone listening to know that intimacy is so much more than that. And that's
Mm.
just one piece of intimacy. And then the intimacy you see is language that I use as well, because that just so beautifully expresses the opening to a vulnerability of really seeing each other in all the ways that we're capable of. I would love to ask you before we take our first commercial break, I would love to ask you of something specific in one of those realms, Elsbeth, that helps people understand, like, what does it mean when I'm intimate with myself, or when I'm intimate in the cosmic realm, or like something that somebody can say, oh yeah, when I do this, I am being more intimate with myself, or because it can feel elusive.
Like, what does that mean? How do I get
Like,
there?
what does that mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
one of the primary pieces that we share with people is breathing, a particular kind of breathing, because we breathe all the time sympathetically in the upper chest. We don't think about it. We oxygenate the body. We're good. When we breathe parasympathetically, where we bring consciously the breath down to the diaphragm sitting behind the belly and extend the belly, we have to think to do that. And for most of us, we can do it for about 3 breaths before squirrel. Our mind is busy and we're off to the races. So the longer we can do that, the longer we begin to develop what we call the witness state of mind, where we're watching the thoughts and the stories and so on without the total felt sense of that. Like it's just cars in the road, not traffic, and I got to get somewhere, and this traffic is driving me crazy, the blood pressure and so on. So that's intimacy, being self-reflective of what our thoughts are, which then short circuit what the energy and automaticities are. And that's intimacy. Intimacy. It's one of the intelligences of the sexual energy. Sometimes people listen to this for the first time and say, that sounds a little woo-woo. But what's really woo-woo are single-celled amoebas and multi-celled organisms, and the universe, it goes on for ad infinitum, and that's our lineage. We're just beginning to uncover what we're a part of. So this sexual energy creating life before we had language, yeah, something magical.
Beautiful. So taking it to the breath. And I love that because, of course, as you said that, everybody listening, myself included, took a nice conscious breath all the way down to the lower part of the belly, to the lower chakras. And that brings us into connection with ourselves, which is what we're talking about.
Yeah. And expanding further on that, it's like the breath goes hand in hand with energy. When a person dies, right before the person dies, the last thing that goes is the breath, and then life force energy is gone. The person is declared dead. So if they go together in dying, the breath and energy, life force energy, they must go together when we are alive. And in the tantric practice, we really put that to work. So when Freddy speaks about the belly breath, the parasympathetic diaphragmatic breath, it is actually that we more deeply connect with the life force energy that runs through us already without our knowing. Just like blood runs through our arteries and veins, we don't notice it. But that blood flow keeps us alive and nourishes us. In the same way, energy, life force energy, runs through the grid of the nervous system. So when we breathe into the belly, the parasympathetic nervous system gets activated. And so the breath brings us further into the flow of our life force energy. And when I'm in flow of my life force energy without constriction here or in my, what is it called, solar plexus, that where anger may reside. And we all have constrictions. It's part of being human. Energy either expands or contracts. So, of course, sometimes we are in contraction. The thing is that really is detrimental if we stay in contraction for a long time. That produces discomfort, dis-ease, and then ultimately disease. So when we come back, perhaps from the break, perhaps we can do a little practice.
That would be awesome. So awesome. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Welcome back, everybody, to Come Back to Love Radio on Dream Visions 7. We are here today with Freddy Z and Dr. E from Chicago, TantraNova Institute, the movie stars, the superstars of Tantra. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Oh, yeah.
Let's keep going. Before you mentioned Elsbeth sharing an exercise, which I'm so excited about. And I wanted first to invite you to share, like, what is Tantra? It's one of those big questions that people have. And I know it can be hard to like put our fingers on sometimes. And there's so many ways to perceive it. But
Yes,
I'd like to
yes.
hear your thoughts.
So go ahead.
Please.
Either of you. Yeah.
So we are TantraNova, Tantra New. So we're integrating aspects of the Eastern approach to Tantra, which was one of the original yogas of the energetic body, and some of the Western approaches to transformation in terms of language, how we create our reality in language, and creative self-discovery, how we discover ourselves in the creative process in music and movement and art. And we've created a gestalt of practices that working consciously also with sexual energy, which is what most people know of about Tantra, that there's something sexual, there's something spiritual. So, we're working with that energetic aspect of the sexual energetic piece.
And yet
Mm,
you said
nice.
the yoga of the energetic body. So most people in the West are familiar with yoga of the physical body, like hatha yoga, as we can do it at almost every street corner in a yoga studio, you know. However, Tantra yoga is really about the energetic body. And the energetic body we haven't gotten introduced to. Like neither when we were, in kindergarten or at university, it's not a dimension where there's any education. Like just considering, did anyone who is listening heard about life force, human life force energy in biology class? I didn't, but
No.
I learned about other energies, form of energies, electrical, thermal, nuclear energy,
Mm,
but not human life force energy. However, it's the most powerful energy there is because it brings forth life. Nuclear energy is very powerful, but it cannot bring forth life. And so this energy is within each human being until it's given to us at conception and it leaves us at the moment when we leave this planet.
mm,
So that is what we mean with the energetic body, that we learn more how life force energy actually shows up in us. How can we sense it in our physical body, where it shows up as sensations, in our emotional body, where it shows up as an emotion, love, hate, joy, envy, and then also in our mental body in terms of thoughts, narratives, interpretations. That is how energy shows up. A thought is pure frequency, emotion is pure frequency, the sensation is pure frequency. It's not something we can touch or see with the mere eye. I can see someone being in love by their facial expression, but the love feeling itself, I cannot see. It's not visible. It's an
mm,
experience that lives within each of us, is highly subjective. And when we become more familiar with noticing how energy shows up in our body, in our heart, and in our mind, that is the moment when we can start shifting that what we may no longer want to feel, like suffering, a headache, um, not having an orgasm, having difficulties with being orgasmic. I mean, the whole gamut. So the tantric practice leads us to ourselves, where we become more aware and tune, but not in a cerebral way, in a feeling way, in an experiential way, both in relationship with self as well as also in relationship with another. This is why I also feel it's very powerful in terms of producing fundamental shifts. We often have people come to us who have done sex therapy, either individually or in couplehood, or therapy in general, and all of that is great. Yet they may come here like something hasn't clicked yet. And that is like the final step, so to speak, because it doesn't go through analysis and mental understanding. If it went there, through there, we already would have resolved it.
Yeah, I mentioned
I
earlier that
agree.
this is remembering what we've forgotten because when it starts out
Mhm.
and we're in the womb, zygotes in the womb, it's just womb service and we're just floating along and, wonderful. We don't even think about food. We're fed and all of a sudden we're born. Whoosh, what bright lights, whacked in the bottom. Some guys are getting their wee-wees cut. And if you could think, you'd say, send me back. And then life happens, good days, bad days, and we appropriate all this stuff as the clay that we look into the world from. And then we get to a point where we want to create something new that we've never had before, whatever it might be, love or work or whatever it might be. And so then the process of really letting go of what we know, which a lot of what we know is running in the background and we don't even know we know. Then when we work consciously with this altered state of the sexual as a meditation and transformational vehicle, we're in an altered state. Some people use plant medicine or therapy, and all that's good too. But working consciously with sexual energy is not something that is typically known for people. I mean, they know that it's an altered state, whether they're doing conscious work or not. That in that 3-second orgasm, it's like, oh my God, I'm connected, it's free, anything's possible. So now consciously with our awareness, using particular awareness practices, breath, energy, and intention, we can start to get connected to a new belief, because where we put our energy is where we put our thought, we put our, creates energy. And so that's how we can begin to shift something in our life that seems that we become resigned to that can't shift.
That was a long road
That's
to what Tantra is about.
No, it's beautiful. I think it's really helpful, and I know it's landing for our listeners. And for me, it's the way that I also hold Tantra in a very similar way. And so I appreciate, the blending of the East and the West and the awareness of energy and what's possible when we are able to when we become more aware, when we're able to come back into our bodies and remember who we truly are and what our capacity is really.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have much greater capacity than we are typically aware of.
Yeah, I mean, when you say, "Oh well, peace is only a thought away," everybody's ready to fight you about that. It's impossible. Blah, 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 blah.
Right.
We can do so much, and certainly peace is not something that's beyond the possibility. It's just we haven't made that spiritual quantum leap to seeing ourselves in each other. And I'm sure that dropping the vilification of the sexual, and it's not about Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, we could teach these practices to priests and nuns if they were vowed to celibacy. It's about being and remembering the energy of that connectedness, that oneness, that our thought
Mm,
powerful as anything else physical it will do.
beautiful.
Mm.
Thank you. I heard there might be an exercise coming. Is now a good time?
Yes, it's a perfect time. So yes, it's a simple consciousness breathing practice.
Yeah. So yeah, when you are with your partner, you can do this with yourself too, but with a partner,
No, no, no. Let's do
individual.
just for the,
Oh,
let's
is that individual?
add
Okay,
that
great.
then because
Okay, great. So yeah, so just this is breathing practice. Great.
Solo practice. Yeah,
Yeah, so just
beautiful.
sitting
Perfect.
comfortably or laying down or wherever you are. Your eyes can be open, closed, or soft focus. And then start with your breath, following consciously into the nose, down the trachea, lungs, and maybe put a hand on your belly and extend the belly on your inhalation like a big balloon. Really feel the extension into your hand. And now feel consciously the breath and the belly flattening towards the spine, following with your awareness the breath back up and out through your nose in your own pace, depth, and rhythm. Continue to breathe in that manner. I'll keep talking. Following your breath into your nose, down your trachea, lungs, extending into your diaphragm and belly like a big balloon on your inhalation. Following with your awareness, your breath back up and out through your nose in your own pace, depth, and rhythm. Letting your thoughts come, letting your thoughts go. As thoughts come in, acknowledge, let them be, don't engage. Bring your focus and awareness back to your breath. Rise of your belly in your inhalation. Flattening of your belly on your exhalation, your breath through your nose in your own pace, depth, and rhythm. You are your own witness to any thoughts, conversations, interpretations, or meaning. For these few moments, just breathing and being, giving the busy mind a rest for a few moments.
and while you're breathing in and out, enjoying communing with yourself, take a moment and notice how you're feeling right now, how your body is feeling. and how your whole being is feeling. And then slowly open your eyes and come back. And Robyn, if you would be so kind and just share how you feel right now, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I feel relaxed, and I also feel aware of some things that are going on, like a few layers down that I may have been aware of, but not to the level that I'm aware of them in this moment. It was like I was able to touch this level. There's this low level anxiety right now about something particular. Um, and I know it's there, but as I was doing the breathing and my body was relaxing and my belly was expanding, and I had my hand on my belly, I became aware of a few thoughts and then just sort of let those go because they're not important. And then I became aware of this emotion, and it was a witnessing of it as if it were like this separate, which I do. That is my orientation to, like, there's this part of me that's feeling anxious. And so there was a way that I was just witnessing it there as if I would just were like peered into the ocean and was like, oh, look, there's a turtle,
Mhm.
there's a fish there's a, it was kind of a little bit like that of just like noticing, oh yeah,
Mhm.
look at that. That's there.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Very good.
The noticing that gets heightened in the stillness,
Mm, yes.
being relaxed and calming down. It doesn't mean that it shouldn't be there or that we resist it being there. It is the noticing and
Right.
giving your belly a little break through the breath,
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So that is really then where what we call the witness or observer of ourselves, where we can be present to what is, how we feel, what goes on, instead of resisting or pretending it's not there. And from there, further choice may open up. And I also want to point to, by breathing deep into the belly, that probably most of you listening today, doing the practice, you came into a flow of your own breath coming in and coming out. That's the flow of energy. Because earlier, Robyn, you asked us, how can we notice it or identify it? And energy
Yeah.
is so elusive. So when we bring awareness to the breath, remember, goes hand in hand with life force energy. So when my breath is flowing into the belly, whew, the energy is flowing too,
Mm,
back up. And so we come into flow. And, for me, the tantric practice is all about coming into my flow. Because when I'm in flow, I'm well. I feel happy, I feel whole. When I'm compartmentalized, that is where the suffering arises. And again, not that compartmentalization is bad or good, it's not about that. It's just what is there that I may be separated from. And then I can explore into that so that the flow can start going. And I also want to harken back to that this has all to do with a pleasurable life. So the flow in the physical body has to do with greater aliveness, and pleasure only shows up when there's more aliveness, more blood flow. So we want to bring greater blood flow to ourselves, and the breath is a perfect way. It's actually the only way. When women come to work with me, particularly in either workshops or one-on-one, and perhaps, some come with a concern, not either being orgasmic or having really a hard time coming to orgasm by themselves or most frequently with a partner. And then the question, what can I do? To guiding them that it doesn't live in the doingness space. It's not more technique, because technique is in the realm of the yang energy, like driving something, working on something. Orgasm is the, greatest expression of flow, and flow into the surrender, into letting go, but not by volition, just by being there, and it can rise in us, And so the breath is so essential, and we learn the breath and to guide the breath in subtle states of energy. We never go to aroused energy right away, because if we were to do that, nothing would change, because the nervous system kicks in what it is familiar with. So if we want to shift out of familiarity that gives us, the same results, if I want to have different results, I need to recalibrate the nervous system. And the breath is the beginning of that. Oh, we have a great little example, a tangible example of energy flow. May we show?
Oh, great. I'm going to pause you because this topic is so, so juicy, and there's so many pieces there that I really want our audience to hear. So we're going to pause for a commercial break and come right back to this flow and orgasm. We'll be right back. And we are back with feminine flow and orgasm. Who doesn't want to get back to that? Welcome to Back to Love Radio Show. We're on Dream Vision 7 here with TantraNova Institute, Elsbeth and Freddy. You guys are amazing. You are a wealth of information. I mean, I feel like people should run to you to work on this and learn more about what is available to heal, to come back to love, to come back to yourself, to come back to each other. I know we could talk all week actually about all of these things, but because you mentioned some really, really powerful pieces, I wanted to go back to what it means when we're in flow. Let's start there. And you mentioned some specific things like when things are compartmentalized, then there can be less flow and contraction. And for me, my practice is so much about it being in the expansion and allowing not only the breath, but energy to flow, and how much more aligned I feel when I'm in flow with life. But it's also can be a little bit elusive, right? Like, what does that mean? I just get up and go to work every day, and then I come home and I go for a walk, and I, do it all over again the next day.
Yeah, well, so much of out of flow is just our thoughts and stories and suffering that we make up about the what's so. The weather's raining and now it's a bad day. Or someone says something to you because of for whatever reason, and now I take it on and now I'm all out of balance. So the belly breath that we were doing earlier is so essential for self-reflection, because if we can't self-reflect around the stories that we create, then have the cascading effect of those stories, the energy, the heart racing, the blood pressure, and so on, then we're kind of doomed to the external world, this external referencing. So the practices of Tantra, which take you right into the inside self, working consciously with life force energy, really gives an opportunity to do that very thing.
Let me give you
Beautiful.
an example. Like, again, I draw on my own experience. And when I spoke earlier that, this unavailability pattern with men that I had, what I discovered in the healing process of the tantric practice was that I hearkened back in one of the healing rituals. It just came to me in the middle of the ritual. It was not, premeditated. This experience when I was 18 years old, and there was lots of disappointment in my first love relationship. And so to speak, some wounds were left. And after that, what I did was I became quite promiscuous. And from where I'm sitting now, what happened was that my heart got separated from my yoni, from the sexual center of the woman. And it was something like that. It felt not consciously, but I just moved with it. It was easier to come to love through sex than through the heart. And I had closed my heart after that experience of the 18-year-old. Now, it took me decades to actually reintegrate my sex with my heart. With all the therapy in my 30s I did and all kinds of transformational work, but that really was brought together for me in the tantric healing. So that is what I mean by compartmentalized, that I was yearning for that intimate, lasting love connection. But how I was wired out of some decision I made when I was 18 years old was that, sex, at least for some moments, you have a deep connection. But that has nothing to do with lasting unless you make it, cultivate it to last.
And that's the thing is we all have some hard
Mm.
wiring, but how do we live into the dream? And because we're dreaming the world anyway, but we're dreaming it from a place of that's already past in terms of the clay we're looking into the world from. Yet this dreamer of what's possible is what really is like the quantum connection in terms of how we use our thoughts and imagination to create a world.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. And Elsbeth, thank you for sharing that story. My story is so similar. And
Mm.
I think it is what also brought me, or the universe seemed to put Tantra in my lap, to be honest. But I also don't believe that that's the way things happen. I believe the universe brought it to me because it's what my soul journey is about in this lifetime. However, I also had the experience of a very young relationship, younger than 18, really really impacting me in such a deep, painful way that I did split in that same way that you described, and then needed to spend, a lot of time, a decade, um, healing that split and coming back to my whole self. And Tantra played a huge role in my life experience. And I resonate so much with what each of you have shared around, like, did the therapy work, did these different things, and they're all good. They've all been great. They were a major contribution to my own healing. But until I really brought in these other aspects of healing, energy, and Tantra informed practices, it wasn't until then that everything, and some other things too, that
yeah,
helped, you
and
know.
that is so
Wow.
beautiful
Thank
how
you, Robyn.
Mm.
you further build on this right now, because that goes back to what Freddy said earlier with the sexual energy. We use that energy for healing, for reintegrating, and connecting our sex with our heart. Or for most women, it's more the heart with the sex. For most men, it's the sex with the heart, you know, is that is where then the flow arises. How can I be in flow if my heart is even closed a little bit? And it may not show up at the outside. As I said earlier, I looked very available, you know,
I understand that one.
but there was something, and
Mm.
it's the energy that eludes us, not the external appearance. And
Right. And you said something really important, and that is that you looked like everything was okay and that you were available. But in truth, you were repeating a pattern in the way that you described it as the pattern of attracting unavailable men. And I also have had a similar pattern in my life. And a lot of people that come to this work will say, I've got this thing keeps happening to me. Like, I keep dating the same kind of person, or I keep getting into a relationship and then it ends. And these patterns repeat themselves. And I think it's the perfect way to it's a perfect place to pause and say, okay, there's something else that I'm not aware of that's going on here, like you said, beneath the surface. And
Yeah.
there's a lack of flow in that space.
That's where working with the self, life force, sexual energy in the altered state allows us to get more deeply connected to that unconscious self. Yeah.
okay, so I think this may be a
Nice.
good moment to bring our energy ball in, because
Sure.
given that energy is so elusive because we cannot hear it or see it. I mean, we can see the light from the light bulbs or the sunshine, but we cannot hear the sounds of the sun rays. It doesn't mean that sun rays don't have sound, but we are not set up for it in our ears, leave alone our brain. As the other way around, you can hear my voice coming from my vocal cords hitting your eardrums, but we cannot see the vibrations that travel from my vocal cords to each other's eardrums. So here is also just bringing it back into the scientific realm. Do you want to do it, Oleg?
Yeah, so this is a ball, and it lights up when you touch both ends of the connection. It works on open and closed systems like a light switch. Yeah, some of the listeners won't hear it unless you're watching this on video. So when I place my hands on both the connections with myself, it lights up. When I
Sounds
add,
like an alien ship landing.
yeah, you can hear
Yes.
the sound.
So you can see that when he closes the circuit,
Yeah, so there's a connection that's formed. And we've
With-
done this with
it's the
100
circuit
people.
within, it's his flow.
Anyway, so let's connect now with you. So here, and then
Okay, let's do this over here. Let's look in.
So they're holding a ball and oh, wow.
so
So
Elsbeth,
for the listeners, yeah, they're holding a ball and it's only making that sound when they're connected
when we
and
did
when they're connected with each other and when they're just connected solo.
and when we
And
break the connection, we break the circuit. And
yes.
it's really an example of what is going on for us in our lives. We break the circuit by disconnecting, by not listening, by not being present. And it appears that maybe it's because of what someone said or because of how I'm feeling. But once I tap into connecting, then connection starts to happen.
Yeah.
And we start to feel it. Because
So-
it's always there. It's a unified field.
That becomes relevant in relationship with another. That with any relationship you are in with any person, each of us here who is listening today, you have a connection, energetic connection with that person. Now, this may be a little crumpled or disconnect, just like with the energy ball. When we disconnect, the sound goes off, So this is why this is a great demonstration, because we can see it or
An
hear it.
example of what is going
Yes.
on.
Beautiful.
So that is why it's so essential to cultivate the connection with my energetic self, so I can become more aware of the connection with his energetic self. And then we can dance together, both on the sexual level, the heart level, the
Third
intuitive
eye to
level,
third eye.
and the spiritual level.
Yes, yes. Beautiful. We're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Come Back to Love Radio. We are on Dream Visions 7. We are here with the TantraNova Institute, Freddy Z, and Dr. E. This has been absolutely amazingly powerful and educational. I feel like in each 5-minute window, there's so many different threads and things to unpack. And like I said, I feel like we could spend a week together talking about all of these things. There's so much to learn, and I'm so grateful that you're doing this work in the world in the very sort of formal and structured way you've been doing it for many years. That's what I've been witnessing from a distance. I really appreciate that. I'd love for you to share with our listeners what kinds of couples come to you so that people can assess, like, is this something that they are curious about, ready for, needing, desiring, and then whatever else you want to share about how people can reach out to you.
Thank you. Yeah. So our work is designed to bring individuals to us as well as couples, women, men, committed couples. When you come as a single person in a co-ed workshop, then you pair up with another single of the other gender. Even same-sex couples have come to us to work with us. So what really the background may be, or their motivation why people, both individuals and couples, come here, is in terms of individuals, it's, some men, some women may struggle with bringing the beloved into their life, or they want to heal some sexual abuse, like an experience around some wounding there, where it's already aware, they are already aware of it. And then some people come because they want to become more aware of their creative energy and really learn to cultivate it, and to connect with it so that they can imbue their physical self, their love self, and also use that energy to create, what they want to bring forth in life, manifest. Couples, you know, there is this kind of couple that may be at the brink of divorce or separation. We may be the last resort. They tried a lot of things, but it didn't work. They come here, given that our work is designed to do, we call it like learning in action, not just talking about it. So there are more effective results available. Then
Right.
some couples come, they are happily married, but the kids may have left for college. They are now with each other and they want to find to each other again in their physical, intimate, sexual, heart self all together. And then there is the couple that is just in love and they are wonderful, and they know there is something more for them to explore into, to open up to. So depending on where you are at, you will
Nice.
be able to find the right way of working with us in workshops or private programs if you like more a private environment, one-on-one or one couple at a time. And
Right. That's awesome. Also, your website will be posted on the Dream Visions 7 website, so everybody can find you there. Do you want to say a very quick something about the free gift you're offering?
yes, and then we thought out of this conversation today that you at home or in the office or in the car, you may want to learn more about it. So we wanted to share a free gift with you, which is called Tantric Intimacy, where we lay out the key practices. It's an
Nice.
easy read, it's an ebook. You can just pick it up. The link will be in the show notes, I understand.
Yes,
Great.
exactly. Yes. Wow. Thank you so much. This has been absolutely a pleasure and a joy for me today. And I know for all the listeners out there, I'm so grateful to you for being here. And I'm grateful for all the listeners out there that are tuning in to come back to love.
Thanks,
Thank you
Robyn.
so
Thank you so much.
much.
Yeah.
You're
Thank you.
so welcome. Have a beautiful day, everybody. And we'll see you next week on Dream Vision 7 Radio, 1 p.m. or 1 a.m. on Thursdays.